Hey everyone, ready to put those thinking caps on?
I'm ready.
Today's deep dive is going to be all about inventions.
Cool.
But we're not just going to talk about the what of inventions. We're going deeper.
I like deeper.
We're uncovering the why, how these incredible leaps forward totally transformed how we live, how we connect with each other, how we understand the world.
It's incredible how one little spark of ingenuity can set off this chain reaction,
Right, it's like a domino effect.
reshaping societies, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's amazing.
Right. Talk about light bulb moments.
Exactly.
And that's actually a great place to start. You ready for this? Our journey today begins with an English lesson.
Really?
I know, right? It's called Famous Inventions That Changed the World. And stick with us because there's this fascinating connection between language and invention. We'll circle back to that a bit later. But first things first, let's set the stage. Our source defines an invention as a unique or novel device, method, composition, or process.
So basically something totally new.
Exactly. Simple enough, right? But I'm curious, how would you explain that to, let's say, a 10-year-old?
Good question. I think I'd probably say it's like a brand new answer to a problem, something nobody's ever thought of before. Like imagine figuring out a way to talk to someone miles and miles away instantly, or building a machine that can carry tons and tons of weight.
I love that. And speaking of carrying tons of weight,
Oh, you're good.
our first stop takes us way back to 3500 BCE. We're talking before the Common Era to explore the invention of the wheel.
The wheel.
I know it seems kind of basic, right?
Well, it is something we kind of take for granted. I mean, it's everywhere.
Exactly. It's so common we hardly even think about it.
Right.
But try to imagine a world without wheels.
I mean,
No cars, no bikes, no shopping carts?
or like luggage with no wheels. Can you imagine? Our entire way of life would be completely different.
It's mind-blowing. It wasn't just a technological leap. It was the foundation for civilization as we know it.
Absolutely. And it's worth really thinking about the ingenuity of it for a second.
Like those first humans who were just like, what if we...
I know, right?
Yeah.
That revolutionized transportation, obviously. Suddenly we could move things over huge distances, which was crucial for trade, for economies to develop.
Not to mention exploring new places.
Exactly. And it set the stage for so many future inventions, too. I mean, think about it. From basic pulleys to complex machinery, it all traces back to that simple concept of the wheel.
It's like that famous quote, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Each invention paves the way for the next.
And speaking of building on existing ideas,
Ooh, I like where this is going.
let's fast forward to 1440 and the invention that really democratized knowledge.
The printing press.
The printing press. Our source highlights how important Gutenberg's invention was for spreading literacy. I mean, it's hard to imagine now, but before the printing press, every single book, every single copy had to be handwritten.
It's crazy, right?
By hand.
Can you imagine the time and skill involved in creating just one book? Knowledge was basically a luxury back then, something only the elite few could access. It's true, those handwritten texts were like priceless treasures. But then Gutenberg comes along and shakes things up.
He really did. The printing press made books so much faster and cheaper to produce.
It's like the difference between a snail and a rocket ship.
The perfect analogy. And with more affordable books, we see this huge surge in literacy rates.
Which meant that information could spread like wildfire.
Exactly.
So the printing press makes books more available, but how did that change society? I mean, what was the real impact?
Well, it's really fascinating how such a simple invention had such huge consequences. For one thing, the increased availability of books fueled the Renaissance.
The Renaissance, that period of amazing artistic and intellectual creativity that exploded across Europe.
Exactly. Artists, scientists, thinkers, they were all inspired by this newfound access to knowledge.
And it wasn't just art and science. The printing press also played a major role in the Protestant Reformation.
It really empowered people to think for themselves, to form their own beliefs. It challenged the existing power structures of the time.
It's amazing how the printing press gave individuals a voice and helped to shape the course of history.
And that's a recurring theme we see again and again when we look at inventions, this really powerful link between technological advancement and societal transformation. They're inseparable.
Totally, they go hand in hand.
And speaking of societal transformation, let's jump ahead to 1712 and an invention that really launched us into a whole new era, the steam engine.
Ah, yes. The steam engine. And we can't forget that while Thomas Newcomen often gets the credit for inventing it, it was James Watt who really made it practical. His improvements were essential to its widespread use.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how innovation is rarely a solo act. It really is a team effort.
It's like a relay race of brilliant minds.
Exactly. Each innovator passing the torch on to the next.
Hmm.
And in the case of the steam engine, Watt's contributions were a total game changer.
They really were. His refinements made it so much more efficient, so much more versatile. It opened up a whole world of possibilities.
Absolutely. Suddenly you could use it for everything.
And it wasn't just trains.
Right. Although trains were huge,
A
obviously.
game changer for travel, for sure.
But yeah, the impact of the steam engine went way beyond just transportation. It revolutionized manufacturing. Factories could operate on a much larger scale, leading to the mass production of goods,
Mass production
meaning they could make way more stuff way faster. And cheaper, too. It led to a whole new era of consumer goods.
Which brings us to...
The Industrial Revolution.
Mhm.
A period of unprecedented technological and social change. It transformed societies across the globe.
It's hard to overstate the impact of the Industrial Revolution. It was this massive shift.
Huge.
People flocking from rural areas to cities, looking for work, new social classes emerging,
Yeah.
the whole rhythm of daily life
It
changing.
was a whole new world. And with those societal shifts came new challenges.
Of course, progress always has a few bumps in the road.
Right. Working conditions in those early factories were often really tough. And the gap between the rich and the poor grew wider. The steam engine was this incredible leap forward, but it also exposed some of the complexities of rapid technological change.
It's a good reminder that every invention, no matter how revolutionary, comes with its own set of trade-offs, its own unintended consequences.
It's true. There's always another side to the coin.
Exactly. Progress is rarely a straight line. But speaking of progress, let's shift gears a bit and zoom ahead to the late 19th century, a time of incredible innovation in communication technology.
Ah, yes. This is when the world started to feel a whole lot smaller.
The walls were closing in, but in a good way.
Exactly. Thanks to inventions like the telephone and the light bulb.
The game changers. 1876, Alexander Graham Bell introduces the world to the telephone. And suddenly we're not bound by distance anymore.
It's incredible, the idea that you could have a conversation with someone miles and miles away, as if they were right there in the room with you. It seemed impossible at the time.
Like magic. And then, just a few years later in 1879, Thomas Edison perfects the incandescent light bulb.
Which, by the way, was built on the work of many others who came before him. It's important to remember that innovation is a collaborative process.
It's true, Edison gets all the glory,
Right.
but it was a team effort for sure. Okay, so we've got the telephone, we've got the light bulb.
Two inventions that completely changed how people lived and worked.
Think about it. Suddenly, factories could operate 24/7. People could work or enjoy leisure activities long after the sun went down.
Talk about a productivity boost.
It's another perfect example of how a seemingly simple invention can ripple through society, impacting everything from our schedules to our social interactions.
It's true. Although it's interesting to think about the downsides too, right? Electric lighting meant longer working hours. It blurred the lines between work and leisure, which is something we're still dealing with today in this age of smartphones and constant connectivity.
It's true. Are we ever really off anymore?
It's a good question, but that's a topic for another deep dive, perhaps.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears again, let's talk about an invention that transformed not just how we live, but how long we live. Penicillin.
Ah, yes, 1928. Alexander Fleming stumbles upon penicillin's bacteria-killing properties.
It was a total accident.
A happy accident. One that revolutionized medicine.
It's true. Our source makes a great point about this. It wasn't just about treating a few infections.
It was much bigger than that.
This was a total game changer in how we approach disease.
Absolutely. Before penicillin, even a minor infection could be deadly.
Scary.
Right. It's hard to imagine now. But Fleming's discovery ushered in the era of antibiotics. Finally, we had a powerful weapon against bacterial diseases.
Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries.
It led to this dramatic increase in life expectancy and a profound shift in our understanding of health and disease.
It's true. It's like this invisible shield protecting us from these microscopic threats. We almost take it for granted.
I know, right? But it's important to remember that the story of penicillin isn't all rosy.
There's always a catch, right?
Well, the widespread use of antibiotics has led to some unintended consequences like the emergence of drug-resistant bacteria.
Oh, right. Superbugs.
Exactly. And that's a challenge we're still grappling with today.
Makes you realize that scientific progress is a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
Speaking of journeys, let's jump ahead to the inventions that have come to define the digital age. Computers and the internet.
Ah, yes. The digital revolution. It's amazing how much the world has changed in such a short amount of time.
I know. It's like we went from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye.
It really does feel that way sometimes. But it's important to remember that these inventions, while seemingly recent, are actually the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity.
It's easy to forget that we were working on this stuff long before Steve Jobs came along.
Exactly. The desire to process and share information faster and more efficiently, that goes way back.
Think about it. Ancient devices like the abacus complex systems of messaging used across empires.
Smoke signals carrier pigeons. These were the early precursors to the sophisticated technologies we have today.
It's like we went from smoke signals to fiber optic cables. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. And that journey was fueled by countless brilliant minds, each pushing the boundaries of what was possible. It's like our source outlines this process of invention, and it's almost as fascinating as the inventions themselves.
Oh, I love a good process breakdown.
Right. It's like a recipe.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, you identify the need. Then you dive into research like crazy. You design, you build a prototype, you test it, you refine it, you patent it, you produce it, and voila.
Voila. A brand new invention. Sounds easy enough when you put it like that.
Right. But we both know it's not that simple.
Definitely not.
Mm.
That voila moment often represents years, sometimes decades of hard work, of setbacks, of breakthroughs.
It's true. There's this whole unseen journey behind every invention.
It really makes you appreciate the dedication, the sheer determination it takes to bring an idea to life.
It does. Think about it. Think about something you use every day, something you probably take for granted. Now imagine the journey that invention went through to get to you. There are countless hours of research, the prototypes that failed, the aha moments that changed everything.
It's really a testament to human ingenuity, isn't it? Our drive to solve problems, to make things better, to constantly push the boundaries of what's possible.
It is. And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's shift gears one last time from the past to the future.
The future of invention. Now we're talking.
Right. Our source highlights some incredible advancements that are happening right now. Things like artificial intelligence, 3D printing, renewable energy gene editing.
Yeah.
This isn't sci-fi, folks. This is the real deal.
It's mind-blowing to think about the potential impact these technologies could have on our lives.
It is both exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time, wouldn't you say? Like, we're on the verge of this incredible future, but we're still figuring out how to handle all this power responsibly.
Exactly. It's a balancing act. Technological advancement doesn't happen in a vacuum. As we venture into these uncharted territories, it's more important than ever to consider the ethical implications to make sure that these innovations are used for good.
It's a lot to think about, and it brings me back to something we mentioned at the very beginning, that unexpected connection between language and invention. It's interesting that our source for this whole conversation was an English lesson.
It is. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Learning a language, it really is a form of invention in itself.
It's true.
Think about it. Just like inventors take existing materials and combine them in new and exciting ways, language learners take words, those building blocks of communication, and use them to create something new, something meaningful.
To express their unique thoughts and ideas, their own personal experiences. It's about crafting something new from the raw materials of language.
Exactly. It's about creativity, imagination, pushing boundaries, just like invention.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. But before we go, I want to leave you with this thought. What will you invent? What story will you tell? What problem will you solve? The possibilities, just like the world of invention, are limitless.